Hi, I'm Mel. I'm the Governance, Risk and Compliance Business Manager at Phoenix.
Hi, I'm Carlos. I'm a Senior Solutions Engineer at BitSight.
So we've got BitSight with us today, and we're going to discuss how they're helping organisations with third-party risk management. So we have Carlos from BitSight. Carlos, I speak to public sector organisations every day, and they have an extensive kind of TPRM process and approach. But there's still this failure point, especially with the scale of the supplier ecosystem. So why is it that this traditional kind of TPRM approach, why is that failing?
So that's a great question. So legacy TPRM processes, basically the challenges that they have is first they rely in a point-in-time assessment. And what that means is they're collecting all this information about that's going to help them understand the risk of these vendors, but that risk is going to change dramatically fast, right? So, and the challenge is with scale, as you mentioned, organizations cannot do those assessments as quick or in the volume that they need because it's very time consuming for their teams. It also takes time for the vendors to do the self-assessment. So those are the two main challenges we see, right? So if you think about how frequent organizations typically do this point-in-time assessment, I think that it's usually 12 to 18 months, right? So a lot of things change in terms of the cybersecurity risk for these vendors in that time frame. So that's the main challenge I see.
And I guess you're relying on that self-assessment and you're relying on what that supplier is saying to be accurate. And I guess some of the customers that I speak to don't even know they don't even have visibility over all of their suppliers because that will change and scale over time. So thank you for that. And I guess the other thing for me is, I'm speaking to customers on the regular who are looking at AI and using AI and deploying that, and it is, it's been deployed rapidly throughout organisations within public sector, but also their suppliers are beginning to use AI as well. And frameworks, they haven't adapted, as quickly as the adoption of AI. So what new third-party kind of risks are associated around AI and what should organizations be doing to manage that?
AI is a topic in every discussion when we think about cyber risk, right? So when we think about our supply chain specifically, I see two cases where we need to kind of manage that AI related risk. So the first one is our vendors using different AI tools. So every company is looking to adopt AI rapidly because of the gains in efficiency. But that means, as you said, the governance and the controls are not in place yet. So the risk for companies in terms of their vendors using AI is having exposed AI tools or MCP service that could potentially expose also private or personal identifiable information. So from my perspective, so the first risk is, those vendors having exposed AI tools that shouldn't be exposed to the internet. The second part of the second area where AI is going to be of consideration for cyber risk in terms of supply chain is we've learned about the Mythos model from Anthropic. So that model is basically extraordinary in uncovering or discovering software vulnerabilities, right? So I think we expect that with Mythos, and it's not generally available at the moment, but it will be eventually. With that, we can expect at least 5 to 10x the amount of vulnerabilities that we are managing now, and even now the amount of vulnerabilities that security teams need to deal with is very large. Yeah. So with that rapid acceleration of vulnerabilities, we also need to consider how is that going to be exposing our vendor ecosystem. But now the second part to that, so first is the quickly discovery of vulnerabilities that we didn't know about, but also these tools are going to help create these exploit kits much faster, right? So before you will have that vulnerability and it will take some skills and complexity to develop a way to exploit those vulnerabilities, but now with these models and these tools, it's going to be much faster. So we're going to go from a very rapid discovery and also almost immediately availability of exploit kits. So what needs to happen is we need to have a way to quickly understand what products and what vulnerabilities are out there in our supply chain so we can react much quicker than where we're doing now.
Okay, so from your perspective, what is this new kind of risk associated to AI? How is that impacting the supply chain? And also, what should organizations be looking to do to manage that?
Yeah, definitely. AI is a topic on every cybersecurity risk conversation nowadays. I think there are a couple of areas where AI is going to introduce significantly additional risk in the supply chain. First is the exposure of these AI tools or models. As you said, like AI is being adopted rapidly, and controls and governance of that AI is not keeping the pace, right? So what that means in practice is you may have across your supply chain a lot of these AI tools being exposed that shouldn't be exposed. And what that means in terms of like the risk, they could be exposing or training models with private or personal information from your customers through your vendors. So that's the first one, the exposure of what shouldn't be out there. The second part, in my opinion, is how AI models, for example, we know about Mythos from Anthropic, is going to accelerate the speed at which we discover software bugs, right? So Mythos is extraordinary discovering software bugs, and also providing exploit kits to kind of exploit those vulnerabilities, which is something that is going to reduce that time between when we know about vulnerability and when it's exploited. So we need to rapidly understand when these vulnerabilities comes up. This is an automated vulnerability discovery. We need to have a same pace to manage and get the visibility of those vulnerabilities across our supply chain and being able to prioritize accordingly.
For public sector teams that are on this kind of cybersecurity resilience maturity journey, which is a mouthful, but they're under a lot of pressure. You know, they've got small teams, they've got a growing supplier ecosystem. What's a more scalable and effective way for them to manage third-party risk management?
Yes, no, excellent question. So at BitSight, we help our customers by providing them with ongoing visibility of the security posture of their vendors, right? The way we do that is we collect data in terms of exposure of these vendors across all the companies with a digital footprint in the internet, and also deepen our web threats that contextualize that exposure. So with that, our customers basically understand what is that security posture of the vendors at any time, but also gets context around what threat actors are targeting, if a particular vendor is being targeted with particular vulnerabilities as well. So if we go back to your previous question around Mythos and the speed at which vulnerabilities will be discovered and we need to react, we can use that threat intelligence information to understand how threat actors are exploiting vulnerabilities. And at BitSight in our tool, we have what we call the DVE score, which is a proprietary score that reflects exactly that, right? Based on how the threat actors are communicating about targeting vulnerabilities, we adapt or we change that score to signal our customers that this vulnerability needs to be prioritized and think about like sprawling supply chains for our customers. The list of vulnerabilities is going to be massive. So prioritizing those outreach efforts to the vendors to say, hey, what is happening with this vulnerability, what is the time frame, is going to be key. So I think that's also a very important point in terms of like the modern TPRM approach, which is not only exposure, but also understanding the context around threats to those critical vendors of ours.
So thank you so much. You've raised some incredible points today. I know that our customers, really welcome any advice that they can get, especially around this area. We're seeing it all the time when we deliver security assessments. So thank you so much. And just, really looking forward to working with yourselves, BitSight in the future, and being able to offer this to our customers.
Great. Thank you for having me.